to share Georgia Anna Carter Krell's letter, Miss Marion Ross, and to share Ann Hurd's letter, Miss Gena Rowlands.
Dear Ronnie, my thoughts go back to the day you were born. My firstborn, my only son. I prayed that God would bless you with good health and that when you grew up, you'd have a home and a beautiful family of your very own.
Dear Bruce, you were 17 when you went off to war. You weren't scared. Boys that age think they're invincible. I didn't let myself think about the danger because then I would have been a basket case.
I knew the possibilities when you went to Vietnam, Ronnie. But I honestly thought you'd be home soon. And you were, but not the way we hoped. One day I saw a military car sitting in front of our house. I knew then my heart was going to be broken. After I got out of the car, I felt like my life was draining from my body.
I couldn't believe that you were dead. I'd seen the coffin, but I couldn't bring myself to go to the cemetery because I just knew that it was an empty box. As far as I was concerned, you were still somewhere in Vietnam. I'd wake up at night thinking to myself, well, I can't leave this house because what if Bruce came home and he couldn't find me? He would never find his way home.
Even after all these years, Ronnie, I miss you so much. Last year when I heard about the vets taking Gold Star mothers to Vietnam, I was afraid it would be too painful to open up the wound. But thank God I wouldn't face it alone. 2 other Gold Star moms would be with me in Georgia, and of course there was Bob and the vets.
We traveled all through the countryside and towns of Vietnam together. Florence Johnson's son Ted was guarding a Vietnamese hospital in Hoi An when he was killed, and she was proud to know that he had been helping wounded soldiers.
Imogene Cupp buried her son Bob on his 21st birthday. He was killed when he stepped on a landmine. Right off the road, all of us joined hands and sang, "God Bless America." As we were putting our Gold Star Mom flags in the ground, we noticed how quiet it was. The traffic on the road had stopped out of respect.
When we got to Hue, our hotel looked right over that bridge I'd been on 30 years ago. The memories of war and death came flooding back, the sheer terror of knowing we were going to die that day.
I sat up all that night with Bob, and I listened to him and tell his stories of what he'd been through on that bridge. He poured his heart out, and he needed to tell somebody about all the dead Marines. I listened, and I held him, and I cried with him all night.
What we saw was so horrible. I told Georgie about all the Marines I'd seen killed, and I told her about my best friend Jim, who was killed in an ambush. I thought about my buddy's future, unfulfilled. I knew that there, but for the grace of God, go I.
And then it was my turn, my dear son. We drove to a clearing at the base of a hill, and I felt my stomach drop like an elevator that goes clunk. This is where your blood was shed, where you died, protecting your buddies. I felt your spirit there, for you were right there with me, and I was sharing your space. I finally was able to say goodbye to you. I know you were proud of me for coming, and you would have said, "Well done, my old faithful mother."
Ann's son Ron died in friendly fire way off in the bush. Ann's 79, but she hiked several miles with us through rice paddies and watermelon patches and cattle fields until we got close to where Ron was killed.
I was remembering the pictures you sent home to me, Ronnie. The scenery looked just the same. I felt like calling out to you. As we walked into the thick brush, The guys assured me that you were there on August 5th, 1970, the day you were killed. You seemed so close to me. I felt as if I looked real hard, I might be able to see you.
Anne asked us to hold her hand because she wanted to pray.
Ronnie, I thank God for the joy of having you with us for the 22 years of your life. I thank God for Bob and the other vets who brought us to Vietnam. And Ronnie, I thank you for being such a wonderful son. You never gave us one heartache. When I walked away from that place where you died, I walked into peace.
I wanted you to survive, my son. But even so many of your buddies who came back alive from the war have suffered so much. We all volunteer, either at the VA hospital or a homeless shelter for vets. We just want to hold those boys and comfort them. So often their families have let them slip away. Every hug I give is a hug for you too.
What remarkable ladies they are. At first, we wanted to get them as close as possible to the exact spot, and then we realized it didn't really matter. It was a spiritual reunion between mother and son, to see the emotion in their eyes, to see that big burden come off their shoulders was just incredible. We went to Vietnam as a group. We came back as a family.
We all pray to God to keep us from having to lose any more young men. Tonight I think of all the other mothers who've lost their sons to war. What can I say to them? Take care of your family. Treasure everything you have. Do what you can do for other people. When you see all those names on the wall, know that each one had a mother. They are our sons, and we'll never forget it.